Elena studied the alien transmission, her eyes burning from 30 hours without sleep. The strange clicking and harmonic vibrations of the Klaxar language echoed through her lab as graduate students frantically built translation matrices nearby. "There's something off about their communication pattern," she murmured, pushing a strand of dark hair from her face. "It's too perfect." Outside the reinforced windows of the UN complex, New York City had transformed. Military vehicles crowded the streets while evacuation sirens wailed. The massive Klaxar mothership hung over Manhattan like a metallic thundercloud, smaller vessels circling beneath it like predatory fish. General Santos burst through the door, his uniform disheveled. "Please tell me you have something, Doctor. The Security Council is falling apart." "I've isolated speech patterns," Elena said, pointing to waveform displays. "Their language has no interruptions, no overlapping speech. Every communication follows perfect linguistic rules with zero deviation." "What does that tell us?" the general asked, rubbing his bloodshot eyes. "It tells us they think as one," Elena replied. "No disagreements, no debates, no individual perspectives. I'm not sure they even understand the concept of having differing opinions." On the main screen, a news broadcast showed chaotic scenes, worldwide. In Tokyo, thousands gathered in silent meditation beneath the alien ships. In Rio, crowds threw an impromptu carnival. In Cairo, people knelt in prayer, while others fired futilely at the hovering crafts. "Look at that," Elena said, pointing. "Our response confuses them. They expected either uniform surrender or uniform resistance." The general's secure phone buzzed. His face darkened as he listened. "They've just vaporized an aircraft carrier. Group in the Pacific. 80,000 people gone in seconds." Elena felt her stomach twist but forced herself to focus. "I need to speak with the Secretary General. I think I know why the Klaxar gave us 72 hours instead of just attacking." "Why?" Santos asked. "They're studying us. They've never encountered a species that acts like we do. We're a puzzle to them." She grabbed her tablet. "And puzzles have solutions." As they hurried through the corridor, the building shook from a nearby impact. Dust rained from the ceiling. Through a cracked window, Elena saw a Klaxar scout ship hovering just 3 blocks away, its crystalline surface pulsing with internal light. In the emergency command center, world leaders argued via video conference. The Russian president demanded immediate nuclear response. The Chinese premier counseled strategic surrender and covert resistance. The Indian prime minister suggested diplomatic outreach. "This is exactly what will save us," Elena whispered. "What? Arguing while aliens prepare to kill us all?" the general said bitterly. "No. Our fundamental inability to agree on anything." She stepped forward into the chaotic meeting. "Ladies and gentlemen, I need to address you all immediately. The Klaxar aren't just technologically advanced. They're fundamentally different from us in ways that give us an unexpected advantage." As she spoke, satellite feeds showed the mothership's hull opening like a blossoming flower, revealing an inner chamber pulsing with energy. Whatever was coming, humanity had less than 48 hours to prepare its response. But for the first time since the ships appeared, Elena felt something unexpected. Hope. Captain Wei Chen hunched over his workstation in the underground facility, surrounded by walls of servers that hummed with desperate calculation. 3 days without sleep left his eyes red-rimmed, but adrenaline kept his mind sharp. On his screen, intercepted Klaxar communications scrolled past, beautiful in their mathematical precision, terrifying in their alien logic. "They never argue," he muttered, tapping his stylus against the desk. "Not once in thousands of transmissions." A junior analyst slid a steaming cup of tea beside him. "Captain, the attacks have hit Beijing. My family." Wei squeezed the young man's shoulder. "Focus on the work, Li. That's how we save them." Across the world in New Delhi, 17-year-old Priya Sharma crouched on her apartment rooftop, surrounded by salvaged electronics. The city burned below her, alien ships cutting through smoke-filled skies. Her modified satellite dish, originally built to steal premium channels, now intercepted something far more valuable. "That's weird," she whispered, adjusting frequencies on her cobbled-together receiver. Every time her equipment produced certain wavelength patterns, specifically those matching human alpha and theta brainwaves, the alien communications briefly dissolved into static. Her phone buzzed with an encrypted message from the resistance network she'd joined yesterday. Any progress? Priya's fingers flew across the screen. They hate jazz. Not kidding. Send more, Miles Davis. In New York, Elena Vartanian established contact with Wei through a series of bounced signals and proxy servers. Their virtual meeting included military, leaders from 12 countries and a hodgepodge of civilian specialists. Their communication is perfect consensus, Wei explained, sharing his analysis. No individual variation whatsoever. Exactly, Elena nodded, and they seemed genuinely confused by our arts and emotional expressions. When we showed them Bach, they asked if it was a mathematical proof. A general from Brazil interrupted. Fascinating. Xenolinguistics doctors, but they've destroyed our aircraft carriers and air force bases. Theory won't stop their ground invasion. Actually, it might, said a new voice. Priya had joined the call, her young face illuminated by electronics in her darkened hiding place. I've been running experiments. Their communications get scrambled by certain frequencies, ones that match human brainwave patterns during creative thinking. The Brazilian general scoffed. You expect us to fight warships with what? Poetry? Not exactly, Priya replied, unfazed. But maybe with jazz, paradoxes, and improvisation. Wei's eyes widened with understanding. A hive mind would prioritize consensus and logic. Contradictions and non-linear thinking might actually disrupt their cognitive functions. Outside Elena's window, a Klaxar landing craft descended toward Central Park, its crystalline hull gleaming with menace. Ground forces would soon follow. We need to test this theory immediately, she said, and we need to distribute any countermeasures globally through unofficial channels. They're monitoring all government communications. The admiral of what remained of the Pacific Fleet spoke up. My tech team captured a damaged scout ship in Hawaii. If you're right about this weakness, then we need to exploit it fast, Elena finished, because they're about to realize we're not surrendering. As the call ended, alerts flashed across everyone's screens. The Klaxar mothership was broadcasting again. Admiral Zenthul's translucent face appeared, neural pathways visibly pulsing beneath his skin. Your time expires, the alien announced, beginning planetary pacification. Commander Adebayo moved silently through the ruins of Lagos, leading his ragtag group of resistance fighters through sewers and collapsed buildings. Once he had commanded elite special forces. Now he led teachers, taxi drivers, and university, students armed with improvised weapons and unbreakable resolve. They expect us to fight like an army, he whispered to his lieutenant, a former mathematics professor. So we fight like ghosts instead. Above them, a Klaxar patrol ship hovered, its searchlights sweeping methodically across the rubble in perfect geometric patterns. Adebayo smiled. Predictable. Always predictable. Now, he signaled. Across 6 different locations, resistance members activated modified sound systems salvaged from nightclubs, the air filled with a cacophony of polyrhythmic drumming, traditional Yoruba music layered with jazz improvisation. The effect was immediate. The Klaxar ship faltered, its lights flickering as it listed to one side. Before it could recover, Adebayo's team launched their attack, targeting vulnerable sensor nodes with homemade electromagnetic pulse devices. In São Paulo, engineer Sofia Cardoso wiped sweat from her brow as she finished converting the university's microwave laboratory into something the aliens would never expect. Her team had discovered that precisely calibrated microwave bursts could temporarily disrupt the Klaxar neural network, causing temporary but debilitating confusion in their ranks. Ready for test, she called to her colleagues, refugees from the devastated physics department. They activated the array, directing it toward a Klaxar ground patrol visible through the broken windows. The effect was instantaneous and startling. The 8-foot-tall aliens, with their translucent exoskeletons and glowing neural pathways, suddenly stopped moving in unison. Several stumbled, their movements becoming uncoordinated. Two actually collided with each other, something never before observed in Klaxar behavior. "Record everything," Sophia ordered, "and get this data to the global network immediately." Within hours, resistance cells across 6 continents were replicating and modifying Sophia's design using everyday microwave components. In Antarctica, Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka repurposed the massive radio telescope array for a different kind of science. "The hive mind requires constant communication," he explained to the multinational research team sheltering at the remote station. "If we can't destroy their ships, perhaps we can isolate them from each other." The array powered up, broadcasting complex interference patterns across frequencies used by the Klaxar fleet. Satellite imagery showed immediate results. Alien ground forces near McMurdo Station suddenly operating with less coordination, making tactical errors that would have been unthinkable days earlier. Elena Vartanian, now operating from a moving caravan of vehicles crossing the American Midwest, coordinated these disparate resistance efforts. Her laptop showed incoming data from hundreds of sources: Klaxar communication patterns, successful countermeasures, failed attempts. "They're learning," she told her team as they tracked another alien patrol. "But they're learning slowly, collectively. They can't adapt as quickly as we can." A direct message from Wei Chen flashed on her screen, isolated Klaxar units showing independent behavior after prolonged communication disruption. Possible breakthrough. Elena's eyes widened. "We're not just fighting them," she realized. "We're changing them." In orbit, aboard the mothership, Admiral Zen Thule experienced something no Klaxar had felt in millennia: doubt. Dr. Jack Thompson, crouched in the red dust of the outback, his makeshift laboratory consisting of salvaged equipment arranged beneath a camouflage tarp. The nearest Klaxar outpost lay 20 kilometers away, but their scanners missed his operation thanks to the natural iron deposits in the surrounding hills. "Let's try another paradox," he told his small team of linguists and physicists. They transmitted the classic liar paradox, "This statement is false," on a captured Klaxar communication device. Through powerful binoculars, they observed the effect on the distant outpost. 3 Sentinel drones immediately dropped from the sky. A patrol ship veered sharply, nearly crashing before its systems reset. "The more elegant the paradox, the more disruptive," Jack noted, scribbling observations. "It's like their shared consciousness cannot process logical contradictions without experiencing system-wide failures." In Montana, Hannah Miller converted her barn into a broadcasting station. As a former military communications specialist, she understood signal propagation better than most. But it was her collection of musical instruments and vinyl records that proved most valuable. "They react strongest to music with emotional complexity," she explained to the local resistance cell. "Bach fugues cause confusion. Jazz improvisation causes navigational errors. But you know what really messes them up?" She grinned and placed a needle on a record. "Beethoven's Ninth. The joy and suffering intertwined. They can't process that level of emotional contradiction." The resistance fighters watched in amazement as the Klaxar scout ship patrolling the valley suddenly spiraled out of control, its crystalline hull flashing erratically as the symphony's final movement reached its crescendo. Across the planet, Operation Dissonance unfolded. Remaining radio stations broadcast paradoxical riddles and complex music. Street performers played improvisational jazz beneath Klaxar observation posts. Resistance hackers inserted Zen koans into Klaxar data streams. Stand-up comedians performed near alien sensors, their punchlines causing visible disruptions in enemy communications. On the mothership, Admiral Zen Thule faced unprecedented challenges. For the first time in the Klaxar's long history of conquest, their collective consciousness experienced fragmentation. The strange emanations from Earth, the music, jokes, paradoxes, art, created ripples of disorder in their unified mind. "Implement complete communication blackout," he ordered. "All units will maintain connection only with command level." It was a desperate measure. Without constant connection to the hive mind, individual Klaxar would begin to experience the horror of isolated thought. But the alternative seemed worse, the entire collective contaminated by human chaos. Elena, receiving reports of the Klaxar communication shutdown, recognized the significance immediately. They're afraid, she told Wei Chen during their encrypted call. They're actually afraid of our thinking. Not just our thinking, Wei replied, his face illuminated by screens in his Shanghai bunker. Our individuality. I've analyzed their language. Further, they have no first-person singular pronoun. No I, only we. Hannah Miller's voice joined the call from Montana. Then we need to keep broadcasting humanity's greatest hits. Not just music and paradoxes, but everything that makes us individuals. As they spoke, the Klaxar mothership began, repositioning, its massive hull shifting above New York. Energy readings indicated preparation for a major attack. But sensors also detected something unprecedented, erratic power fluctuations throughout the alien fleet, as if the very core of their technology was becoming unstable. They're trying to end this quickly, Elena realized, before more of them start thinking independently. The Russian Cyber Command Center, hidden deep beneath Moscow's subway system, buzzed with frantic activity. Programmers hunched over keyboards, their faces illuminated by screens displaying alien code structures. The Paradox virus is ready, announced Dmitry, the lead programmer. His team had created something unprecedented, malicious code based on recursive loops and self-contradicting logic statements. Colonel Orlova nodded grimly. Deploy to all captured Klaxar interfaces. Within minutes, the virus propagated through salvaged alien communication devices, jumping from isolated Klaxar units into their emergency backup networks. The effect rippled across Eastern Europe. Klaxar ground forces suddenly stopped mid-advance. Scout ships dropped altitude, hovering confusedly. Some alien units began moving in contradictory patterns, as if receiving conflicting commands. In Milan, Maestro Giovanni Rossi directed an unusual orchestra in the underground shelter beneath La Scala. Audio engineers had modified their instruments, with specialized transmitters that broadcast at frequencies matching Klaxar neural patterns. Remember, he told the musicians, play with all your emotion. Make it as human as possible. When they performed Puccini's most heart-wrenching aria, the effect was immediate. Klaxar ships above the city experienced cascading system failures. 3 scout vessels actually crashed into each other, their perfect coordination shattered by the emotional complexity of the music. Across East Africa, Kenyan wildlife rangers led by Makina used their intimate knowledge of the landscape to devastating effect. They didn't engage the aliens directly. Instead, they created elaborate environmental traps based on ancient hunting techniques. They think in straight lines, Makina explained to her team. We think like the predators and prey that evolved. Here, the Rangers used fire, water, and natural features to herd alien ground forces into ravines and sinkholes. The Klaxar, accustomed to geometric battle formations, found themselves unable to adapt to the organic, unpredictable tactics. In orbit, a hastily assembled coalition of spacecraft, Chinese space station modules, Indian satellites, retrofitted private space company vessels executed a daring mission. They positioned themselves in a complex formation around the Klaxar mothership, broadcasting a concentrated stream of human cultural content directly into its command centers. Status? Elena asked, now coordinating global efforts from a mobile command center crossing the Canadian wilderness. Penetration achieved, reported the mission commander. Transmitting complete works of Shakespeare, Tagore, Borges, and Wu Chenggen directly into their primary systems. Elena turned to her latest decoded transmissions from the Klaxar fleet. They're experiencing unprecedented disruption. Their language is actually changing. I'm seeing individual variation in communication patterns for the first time. Her screen suddenly lit up with urgent messages. In 12 locations worldwide, Klaxar units had broken from formation and disappeared. More disturbingly, the mothership had begun charging what appeared to be its primary weapon system. They're preparing for something big, Wei warned from Shanghai. Their communications indicate extreme distress. Hannah Miller joined the call from Montana. It's not just distress. I've been monitoring their transmissions too. They're experiencing something like existential terror. Elena studied the decoded fragments on her screen. The Klaxar weren't just losing tactical advantage. They were losing their fundamental identity as a unified consciousness. Human unpredictability wasn't merely annoying or tactically challenging for them. It was unraveling the very foundation of what they were. This isn't just a war, she realized. It's a clash between two fundamentally different ways of being. Rekta moved cautiously through the abandoned library in Chennai, separated from the hive mind during an attack that had damaged his neural transmitter. 3 days of isolation had produced strange effects. Without the constant presence of the collective consciousness, individual thoughts had begun to form, fragile at first, then with increasing clarity. The alien commander ran a 3-fingered hand over the spines of books lining the shelves. Poetry collections, novels, philosophical treatises, each representing a single mind's creation. The concept had been incomprehensible to him a week ago. Now it fascinated him. He opened a volume of Tagore's poems, the strange symbols gradually making sense through his translation implant. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high. Something resonated within him, an emotion he had no name for. The Klaxar language had no word for wonder or yearning, yet he felt both. Acutely. Across India, similar transformations were occurring. Dozens of Klaxar units, damaged or isolated during the human counterattacks, experienced the emergence of individual consciousness. Some reacted with terror, desperately attempting to rejoin the hive mind. Others, like Rekta, began to explore this new state with cautious curiosity. Aboard the mothership, Admiral Zenthul received the disturbing reports. Scout ships failing to return, ground units going silent. Worse, some returning units exhibited contamination, neural patterns showing dangerous irregularities. "Purge all affected units," he commanded, his voice echoing through the crystalline command chamber. "Any showing signs of individuation must be terminated." The order spread through the remaining hive mind. For the first time in recorded Klaxar history, they turned weapons against their own kind. In Sydney, a Klaxar patrol executed 3 of its members who had begun asking questions. In Cairo, a scout ship fired upon ground troops who had developed preferences for certain patrol routes. Elena, monitoring Klaxar communications from her mobile command center, detected the internal conflict immediately. "They're killing their own people," she told her team, horror in her voice. "Any who show signs of independent thought." In her makeshift lab, she prepared for the most dangerous experiment yet: direct neural communication with a Klaxar individual. Resistance fighters in Chennai had reported an alien seemingly detached from the others, hiding in a library rather than rejoining its unit. "If we can establish contact," she explained to Wei and Hannah during their encrypted call, "we might learn why they're so terrified of individuality." The neural interface equipment was crude, modified from captured alien technology. The risk of brain damage was significant, but Elena saw no alternative. As resistance members brought the cooperative, alien Rekta, to the secure location, she prepared the connection protocols. "My name is Elena," she said slowly as the alien entered. The tall, translucent being regarded her with compound eyes that seemed, impossibly, to express confusion. He began, then paused, as if the pronoun itself was strange to vocalize. "I am called Rekta." The simple exchange, one individual identifying itself to another, represented a profound revolution in Klaxar existence. As the neural interface activated, Elena's consciousness touched the aliens. She expected alien concepts, incomprehensible thought structures. Instead, she encountered something startlingly familiar: curiosity, uncertainty, and fear, all wrapped around a core of emerging selfhood. Through the interface, Rekata shared the terrible truth about his people's history. The assembled team stared at the holographic display of the Klaxar mothership, its massive form rotating slowly above the planning table. 27 nations had contributed their best to this final mission: soldiers, scientists, engineers, and now, remarkably, a handful of awakened Klaxar led by Rekta. "The planet killer is housed here," Rekta explained, his 3-fingered hand pointing to a pulsing chamber near the ship's core. "A gravity manipulator powerful enough to shatter your world's tectonic plates." Hannah Miller studied the aliens, translucent features still adjusting to the idea of working alongside the very beings that had nearly destroyed humanity. "How much time do we have?" "Less than 6 hours," Rekta replied. "The weapon requires significant energy concentration. Once it begins final charging, nothing can stop it." The assault teams prepared in grim silence. No nation's military had ever attempted something so audacious, boarding an alien mothership to disable a doomsday weapon. The plan seemed impossible, yet the alternative was extinction. Elena finalized the crucial component of their plan, a specialized transmission package containing carefully selected human cultural works. "This isn't just about disabling their weapon," she reminded the assembled leaders. "It's about changing them from within." As transport ships prepared for launch, the team received a final intelligence update. Klaxar communications indicated growing disorder within their ranks. More individual aliens were breaking from the hive mind, causing Zenthul to isolate himself with only his most loyal commanders in the central chamber. "Their fear of individuality is the key," Elena explained. According to what Rekta shared, they see it as a disease, a return to the chaos that nearly destroyed them millennia ago. The mission launched under cover of a massive worldwide diversionary attack. As human forces engaged Klaxar defenses on every continent, drawing their attention outward, the small fleet of modified spacecraft approached the mothership from multiple vectors. "Now!" Hannah commanded. Teams launched their assault simultaneously from 19 different entry points. The Klaxar defenders, unable to predict the seemingly random tactical patterns, found themselves overwhelmed. Human soldiers moved in chaotic formations that defied standard military logic, making decisions on the spot rather than following rigid protocols. Rekta led Elena's team through maintenance channels toward the communication core. "The hive mind is maintained through this network," he explained as they moved through crystalline corridors. "Your cultural transmission must reach it before we can approach the weapon." Hannah's group fought their way toward the central chamber, using sonic weapons that broadcast continuous paradoxical statements, disorienting the defenders. The awakened Klaxar with them provided crucial intelligence, identifying vulnerable points in the ship's internal defenses. In the communication hub, Elena connected their transmission device to the alien network. "Uploading now," she announced, watching as humanity's greatest achievements, art, music, literature, philosophy, began flowing into the Klaxar collective consciousness. Throughout the ship, affected Klaxar guards suddenly hesitated, their neural networks flooded with human creativity and emotion. Some collapsed, overwhelmed by the sudden influx of individual experiences. Others began to question their orders for the first time. From the central chamber came Zenthul's desperate command. "Accelerate weapon charging. Earth must be eliminated immediately." Energy readings throughout the ship spiked dangerously. The planet killer was activating ahead of schedule. "We're out of time." Hannah's voice crackled over the comm as her team reached the massive doors of the central chamber. "It's now or never." The central chamber doors parted with a crystalline chime as Hannah's team breached the final defenses. Inside, the cathedral-like space pulsed with energy, its transparent walls revealing the earth suspended below like a fragile blue jewel. At the chamber's center stood Admiral Zenthul, his exoskeleton now enhanced with additional neural connections that linked him directly to the planet killer controls. "You are too late," the Klaxar leader announced, his voice resonating through the chamber. "The gravitational distortion cannot be stopped." Hannah stepped forward, flanked by soldiers from a dozen nations and 3 awakened Klaxar. "We're not here to fight you, Admiral. We're here to show you something." Zenthul's compound eyes shifted, registering confusion as Elena and Rekta entered from another access point. The neural disruption was spreading throughout the ship, but the Admiral remained protected by specialized shielding. "Whatever primitive concepts you wish to share are irrelevant," Zenthul declared. "Your species represents a dangerous aberration that cannot be permitted to spread among the stars. You fear us because you used to be us," Elena replied, activating the device she carried. "Rekta shared your history. You were once individuals, weren't you? Before the hive mind." The Admiral's neural pathways visibly pulsed with agitation beneath his translucent skin. Individuality brought us to extinction's edge. 10,000 years ago, our civilization nearly destroyed itself through conflict and division. So you engineered a solution, Hannah continued. The hive mind. Perfect consensus. No disagreement, no conflict, no individual desires. And peace, Zenthul added. Unbroken progress, harmony. But at what cost? Rekta challenged his former leader. We lost music, poetry, joy, love. The planet killer's energy core pulsed more intensely, the chamber vibrating with its power. Zenthul moved toward the control interface. Your destruction ensures our way of life continues. Hannah activated her final countermeasure. Not a weapon, but a transmission. Throughout the chamber, holographic displays materialized, each showing different facets of human experience. Children playing in parks before the invasion, scientists collaborating on discoveries, artists creating in solitude, lovers embracing, friends arguing passionately then reconciling, strangers helping one another during disasters. This is what you fear, Hannah said softly. Not our weapons, not our technology. You fear that we found another answer to the same problem you faced. We still fight, Elena added. We still disagree. We still cause each other pain. But we also create beauty that no single mind could imagine alone. The neural disruption from Elena's cultural transmission had now reached the central chamber, bypassing Zenthul's shields through the ship's own systems. The Admiral's neural pathways flared with new patterns as he absorbed the flood of human experiences. We evolved a different solution, Hannah continued. Not perfect consensus, but something harder. Unity despite our differences. Cooperation, without uniformity. Zenthul reached for the activation console, his movements now hesitant. The ship shuddered as the weapon approached critical energy levels, but as his hand hovered over the final control, the Admiral paused, compound eyes fixed on a hologram showing children of different nations playing together after a peace agreement. What is this? He whispered, a tremor in his voice. Feeling,